Welcome to a special edition of the Comic Station where we're going to go over the Man of Steel movie. Don't worry, we don't get the spoilers till the end. But before we get started, I am Paul Nisi from Front Towards Gamer.
I'm Scott Cates of the Comic Station.
I'm Lito Gioacchini of Unstoppable Force Meets Immovable Object.
And we all have seen Man of Steel, and we're going to give our opinions. Some of them obviously differing from different weights on the scale here. And we're going to kick it off. First off, right away, iconic look, the new suit. What did we think about it?
Liked it. I had no problem with it. Whether or not he has red shorts on did not detract from it. Form-fitting. Luckily for them, Henry Cavill really filled it out.
I thought he embodied the suit very well.
Yeah, I like the way they did it, especially, even on Krypton. They had the suits, then the battle armor came over. It worked for me. I had no issues with it whatsoever.
I liked the suit overall. Like, some of the texturing on the S I felt a little was unnecessary, but otherwise it was really good. I liked the chainmail armory kind of feel to it, which, of course, I liked all the design of Krypton in general. It had, like, this old feeling to it while also feeling sci-fi.
Yeah, I think they brought the suit and worked it into the mythology pretty well. I thought it fit well, and they brought it in, and they justified it well. Alright, up next is the characters, but some of the supporting role. Ursa, and even though his name was never said, Non, they did have a little nod there. Ursa, obviously, bigger part in this. I loved her. I loved her fighting style. I loved, she moved really quick, and then she kind of did like a judo move where everything was very fluid and fast moving.
No, I agree. Liked her. She gave you a hint of, I don't want to say evil, because I don't, evil's not necessarily the
lack
word.
of morality.
Yeah, so no, she fit. The going back to the 70s to the original. I'll take the modern.
I liked her too. She actually, her fight scene with Clark in Smallville was my favorite fight scene in the movie.
Absolutely.
And you really get the sense from this character that she's someone who's, like, to quote Superman 2, who is cruelty extended even to the children of Krypton. So I liked her. With Non, I liked that he was there.
He didn't say anything.
That's my big problem. I would have liked a little bit more of the other Kryptonian criminals. Like, there's one scientist who was clearly Jack Sore, who's a big scientist villain who doesn't get named. There's no development there.
When you're on Krypton, you do see the moon is exploded. And
right.
And you get a little hint
cameo
to it.
there. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more of some of the other characters, but this was really Superman and Zod as the main characters. Yeah. Speaking of which, Zod, how do we think his character was brought? I really enjoyed it.
I loved Michael Shannon. I thought he portrayed it well. The only thing for me that was missing was a kneel before Zod quote. I mean, if he'd have done that, the homage to Terrence Stamp would have been complete. But because Terrence Stamp was phenomenal in that original role.
I understand why they didn't do it. I would have liked it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I liked Michael Shannon's performance. I didn't like the writing for the character too much, though. He felt too not fleshed out enough. Like, okay, they established his whole role in it because he's a eugenics warrior, because he's secretly calm the whole time. Anyway, he's this eugenics warrior who's been bred to protect his people at all costs, but he always takes the most destructive, most conflict-laden path to doing that.
Well, I see it more of he always takes the shortest route. He always takes the more point A to point B in a simple mentality of putting your fist through the brick instead of figuring out your way around the wall.
Like, I get that. I just don't get why he does that. That's sort of my thing. Like, they point out that he used to be friends with Jor-El, and Jor-El says sometimes, like, you're not the man you used to be. Who was the man he used to be?
My only issue with Zod was he was bred this way. He was bred to be military, bred to think, bred to control. Yet, he seemed to lose his temper a lot for somebody that was bred to control.
That's something that was always running through my head. It's like, why, if he wants to make a new Krypton, why does he have to do it on Earth? Why does he have to do it against the species that has nuclear weapons that can ruin his new planet?
Well, he's seen all these other planets.
Like, why not just go to Mars and do it?
Yeah. Well, he's seen all these other planets that had this colony set up. Yeah. And really, I just think it's more of a slight against
like
Superman. So.
No, I feel like I heard it's like against Jor-El or whatever, which I could believe if he said it, maybe.
Yeah. And so now we're up to Superman, son of Krypton. Again, he fit perfectly in the suit. I thought he did a really good job. I thought the moments when he most embodied Superman was the little back and forth with Lois and the little enjoying himself. And I really enjoyed the sight. And it's been on a lot of the trailers, so this is no spoiler. But when he first learns to fly, and the enjoyment in his face when he's like, I'm doing it, this is amazing. And then he falls. But I think that was also a nice little homage to how Superman, in the comic books, he started out not having flight. He started out not having all these powers, and he started leaping great bounds. He couldn't fly at first, and then he slowly built up these powers, and I thought that was a nice little nod of how he was learning these powers. Of course, they condensed it really quickly for the movie, but they didn't have like 60,
Yeah, exactly.
70 years of comic book history to go into, but I thought it was a nice little nod.
Yeah, I think, especially going back to everything you have to go against if you're playing the character of Superman. Henry Cavill had the look. Obviously, the guy's been in the gym, and probably the only actor playing the part that actually physically looked like Superman should look like.
Especially the modern Superman.
You know, you
the
go,
time period Superman.
you know, forgetting about Brandon Routh for a second, because he just doesn't really count. Unfortunately, you know, you're always going to be battling. If you're Henry Cavill, you're battling against the ghost of Christopher Reeve, who is still the embodiment of what Superman is. That being said, I wish they would have gotten a little bit more in depth with his character. I like the flashback scenes. You understand why. You know, they didn't give you his whole childhood on Earth. We didn't need that. We got glimpses of it, and that tells you how he kind of became to be. But I want a little bit more. That was my one major complaint with the movie, is I just didn't get quite enough of him and how he felt.
I very much agree with you there, Scott. That I thought that Cavill did a good job. He was very good in the material, but I have no idea who he is in the role.
I think the movie itself was trying to be very serious, and he took that to heart.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit to the detriment of Superman. Superman has always been more of a lighthearted, trying to keep people up and happy, and he's always been, don't worry, things will turn out okay.
The other big thing I felt with this is that I never felt like he was actually Clark Kent. I felt like he was Kal-El, and I felt like he was Superman.
Well,
but never. Okay, one scene I did. There were two scenes where I thought he was totally Clark Kent, and they're my favorite scenes with him in the movie. And that's the few small scenes when he's talking to Ma Kent right before the Kryptonian ship grows up.
That's true. I did like the little back and forth with the mom.
Like, that's where he felt the most human to me.
And at the one part where he's protecting Ma Kent.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Loved that scene. So we talked a little bit of the flashbacks, and that shows a good bit of his childhood growing up. I did like how they did that. And some of these, I actually expected the Krypton parts to be the flashbacks, but really that was part of the movie, and the childhood was part of the flashback.
Yeah.
I thought Krypton itself as a place was really well done. As you said, a lot of history, the organic nature of all the technology, even though they were obviously more advanced, and we find out the history that Krypton had been more advanced, and they kind of exploded and then receded back in. But you could see that even though they were more advanced, they took a lot of their technology based on their natural embodiments, where a lot of their creatures had 4 wings, and you see their planes have 4 wings and so forth. So I thought they did a great job bringing Krypton to life.
Very eco-friendly, you know, type of a place. You know,
absolutely.
with a nice little touch of modern and futuristic, whatever. But even in the style of clothing that they wear, it was it was just a nod to, you know, eco-friendly, yes, and almost a Renaissance type of a...
I get that, yeah. It all felt, it had that sort of medieval edge to it, like the fact that they're basically wearing armor. It plays up the idea of a crest, like being like a sigil, like Game of Thrones kind of thing there. And like all the tech, it felt very old, but still very advanced. With the flashbacks to his life in Kansas, they were all generally well done, except I could have used actually a little bit more gentleness with some of them. Like, okay, the first flashback is him in a closet, first having his super senses come to light and stuff. The problem with that is when Ma Kent comes to talk him down, it happens with almost in like that. It's just too fast there. You need that to be slowed down. You need to see how much he actually shut out to actually hear just her voice in this one thing. Same with on Krypton, it's all caught up in just telling you, this does this does that, I disagree with him, we hate him, all this stuff in 20 minutes. You can't know someone in 20 minutes.
While watching the movie itself, I didn't have a problem with it though. As a moviegoer, while sitting there and watching it, that didn't bother me.
I get you, yeah.
Until you think about it afterwards. Speaking of which, one of the characters, Lois Lane, they did a few things. Obviously, a lot of the shows have shown Lois Lane. We're not going to go into spoiler just yet.
Yeah.
But what do you think they did with her character? How did you like the actress in this, and how do you like the embodiment without getting the spoilers yet?
I thought that Amy Adams did a good job with the character. I like the fact that she was a reporter. She found out what she needed to find out.
Mm-hmm.
A little far-fetched with the fact that apparently
Her access.
she got to do whatever she wanted to do, and under even remotely normal circumstances, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
that's the only issue I have.
That was very Hollywood of just making sure she was in the scene at all times. And
I felt she was a little perfunctory to the story. Like, what I felt like, if you notice, she actually just gives up her part of the movie about halfway through and goes home, and then she has to be dragged back in by accident. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't in initial drafts of this, and then just figured, we have to add her. And which is the same, because I think there should have been more of her. She should have been almost into a second protagonist in this film, because without Inhumans cattling off as Superman in it, she could have been the human side. Sort of like what they did in the Trek reboot that I actually liked in it, was having both Spock and Kirk as dual protagonists. And there are also some cool similarities, like, you know, Superman is the son of a scientist who fights against a military guy, but she's the daughter of a military general herself. That's an interesting dynamic you'd play up in these two characters, but there's so little to what she is in this beyond just girl reporter. Like, yeah, she's sort of a go-getter, but she's not as much a go-getter as, say, in the Silver Age comics or in the animated series.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree on a slight point. I did think they did a good job on her. I did think they made her very powerful, and they didn't make her the bump, like...
She wasn't Margot Kidder.
She was no Margot Kidder, yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I did like how they did her character. And starting now, we're going to get into spoilers. If you want to see the movie, I'm personally going to say go see the movie right now and then come back. But if you don't mind a little bit of spoilers, we're going to start getting into them now. You've been warned. I put enough of a buffer in here talking about we're going to do spoilers if you haven't done it enough. Alright? Go. She knows who Clark Kent is. She knows who Superman is. She gets right into it. She showed herself as a great reporter by finding this out. The fact that she stepped back and, as you said, she got stepped out of it and then brought back, it was, again, believable while I was watching the movie.
Yeah.
I did like that they made her more powerful. She wasn't fooled. She's not... It always seemed the most impressive reporter, better than Clark Kent, couldn't tell that that was Superman.
I agree, actually. I like that she knows who it is. Like, I always felt the sort of, like, okay, I like Superman 2, it's my favorite of the movies, but the constant back and forth, the constant, is he, isn't he? I'm like, in the opening of Superman 2, the original cut of it, is her jumping out of a window because she thinks Clark is Superman. No, that's just crazy talk. She should know. And now we get to avoid all that nonsense.
Yes. Alright, next thing with the spoilers is Pa Kent. Obviously, we avoided talking about it a little bit in the non-spoiler portion, and most people that will read Superman know that Pa Kent dies. And Smallville and many of the comics have used Pa Kent dying as a good catalyst.
Oh, Superman, the first movie, did it.
There you go. So, it's been known, but I'm surprised how many people don't realize he's going to die. I did think they kind of blew through the wad a little early. They kind of spoiled it themselves when they showed Pa Kent's grave, and then it wasn't too long after that they show how he died, and as soon as that argument started,
you just know.
I'm like, he's gonna die! He's arguing! Yep. He's gonna die. Because that would be the most poignant thing. The last thing I said to him is, I hate you.
Yeah.
So...
Well, the one thing I'll say about this, I don't know that they could have gotten a better person to play Pa Kent.
I agree.
Kevin Costner embodied a Midwestern farmer, tough love on Clark, but always out to protect him.
And every time you saw him looking at young Clark, you saw that he saw his potential but was afraid for him.
Yep, it was a masterful, understated performance by Costner, and I thought it was brilliant on his part.
Great job.
I wish, in a way, I could have seen maybe a little bit more of him.
I agree there.
He was gone way too soon.
Yes. Maybe extended edition.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I hated the sequence where he died. I'm just gonna be upfront about this.
I have heard stories of people crying.
I'm just okay. To go over what actually happens is that a tornado hits, because it's Kansas. These things happen, and so, a la Independence Day, in one of the many things that reminds me of Independence Day in this movie, Pa Kent forgets his dog in the car and runs back to go free it, and then he's caught there, the tornado's bearing down on him, and Clark's about to go super, but there's a bunch of people under the underpass where they're hiding, and Pa Kent goes,
yourself.
No, stay back, don't save me. I'm like, no, he wouldn't do that. He'd save him. He's Superman. He always saves people.
But it's shown later he regrets it, and it shows
though?
that yeah, I think later he does mention that he regretted it.
We need a scene almost immediately after showing that he did regret it, or how it affected. Like, there's no funeral scene for Pa Kent. There's no scene almost immediately after that flashback showing how he reacts to the death of his father, the death he allowed to happen because he was afraid people wouldn't accept him.
When he's standing at the grave with Lois there, he does, I believe he does say that he regrets it. He doesn't like how his last moments with his father were. So I do think that showed a little bit. I think they kind of, again, like you said, I don't quite believe it. I think he would have broken character and saved him, considering, but fine. It's movies.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
It is a movie.
So, the big spoiler.
The big one.
Dun, dun.
If you think you're okay with spoilers now, you might want to stop
We urge
again.
you to turn back!
But, the big spoiler, Clark Kent, Superman, kills Zod.
Loved it.
What did you think about the final battle? The whole city just... That kind of actually sat with me wrong with the final battle. He's always been about saving people. How many people did he himself probably end up killing by flying through all these buildings and smashing everything? So much destruction. And how many people end up dying because of Superman there? But, anyways, the big thing is trapped, that last final moment. He's gotten rid of all the other Kryptonians. He can't get rid of Zod the same way. And Zod is constantly threatening the human race, not just Clark anymore, but the human race. And he physically is just about to destroy a family right in front of him. And Superman is, at least as the movie is making you believe, he has no other choice. Did you believe that? What did you think that as far as the character? Just does that fit?
Well, no. I mean, obviously, as somebody who's a huge Superman fan and read most of his stuff all the way back from 1938, no, it doesn't fit the character.
I think this is going to be the most polarizing of the entire movie.
For me, I was okay with the scene. Yes, could he have done something else? So I'm sure he could have.
Yeah.
Whether or not Goyer was just getting lazy, or it's a dramatic effect because once again, dealing with for those of you who are watching that are comic fans, it doesn't work. But for the general public who are not Superman, familiar with Superman lore or that in depth with the character, it works for the general public. I liked it. It just showed that I think that whether it's Clark or Kal-El, Superman, for as much of an ideal that he embodies, is still a flawed being.
It's not made to the diehard fan that's been reading every comic for the 75-year anniversary edition all the way up to now. It's made for the mass market, and it's made to appeal to them.
Actually, okay, beforehand, some big Avengers fans had their images of the Avengers having crushed Superman, right? And when I first heard that he killed Zod in it, I actually thought that Marvel had kind of broken it there, because if you notice in the Marvel films, they're killing people left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Like, look at Iron Man 3. I came out and actually myself, there was a lot of killing in that movie. And it made me wonder if that's the stance they were going to take on Superman. And that's one of the movies that, for the sequel, they don't go that route. That they keep with what Snyder said, that this is going to be his I can't kill post this.
Alright, speaking of the sequel, we're going to end this discussion with one, where do you think it's going to go? And then we're going to wrap up with our final thoughts.
Yeah.
As far as where I think it's going to go, I really hope that they show more of the emotional impact of the death of killing Zod in the next issue.
Agreed.
With all the little hints and all the little kind of spoilers here and there, Easter eggs with Lex Luthor, and you saw it's a connected universe where you see Wayne Tech on satellite, you see Lex Luthor everywhere. There is a little image if you have to really search for it.
Booster Gold comic.
The publisher of Booster Gold Comics, they have their sign there, so you see it's a connected universe. I'm really hoping that, of course, everyone always hopes for Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Or Brainiac is another one that people
Brainiac would be a really good villain for this, I think.
That would actually be really good, considering it's another Krypton. It's another aspect of Krypton comes back.
Well, with Brainiac, you have the option, because, you can keep him, say, for the final fight, and he can have his robot minions, he can, be hacking jets, hacking satellites, imagine Superman flying around, then just a jumbo jet, just out of nowhere, wham, right into him there. That'd be pretty badass.
It would be really cool.
Although, I am hoping for a sequel. I know we won't get it, but it'd be awesome if we got Mr. McSpillet.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
What would you like to see in a sequel?
Me, I want to see more destruction.
That's very okay.
You know, I will say this too, that all the fight scenes are spectacular.
I like when Superman gets his ass kicked because he comes back from it, and there's very few characters can really do it.
Yeah.
Doomsday, Darkseid.
I will admit
Bizarro.
one of the reasons that I started off not really honestly being a fan of Superman is because he seems so invulnerable.
Yeah.
And I like you said, I like to see him get his ass kicked because it makes it so believable when he lifts himself back
Sure,
up.
I mean, put him on Warworld with Mongol.
That'd be cool.
That would be amazing. Don't
Actually,
they do that?
They don't do
One of
it,
the things
yeah.
that I've said about Superman is that I don't classify the films as a franchise yet, because they're a series of films. A franchise has aesthetic elements that can be copied or added to other things, and this doesn't have all of that yet. So I'd like to see them bring in more locations or things like that that could be associated with, like, they did a great job with Smallville and with Krypton. Metropolis is still kind of bland McCityville for me, but if they brought in, like, they had him go on some kind of, he had to go into deep space. There was a transmission, he had to go to Warworld, he had to go through a place, he met Lobo or something. That'd be cool.
You have the Guardian movie coming up. Maybe he has a space mission, and he uses the satellite or whatever as a waypoint. Or or he talks to somebody and said, "Oh, the Guardians were here." Anything kind of tying in the universe a little bit more solid. I know there's obviously been a lot of the JLA movie and everything. I would like them to solidify the universe a little bit more besides these Easter eggs.
Agreed.
And I know it has been talked about that the JLA movie is rumored for 2015.
To go up against Avengers 2.
And the director wants to put another Superman out 2014. A movie out in turn around in 1 year. If they haven't already started shooting it, it's not going to come out.
Unless you're making a Saw sequel, you're not making that movie.
Yeah, it's not going to have 1 year.
This one took 2.5 years to make.
Exactly. So unless they're going to push the JLA back a year, but I really don't see that happening. And I mean, I would like to see another Superman before the JLA, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Actually, I kind of wish they had saved the Kryptonian invasion for Justice League, because that would have been a good way in that to get Superman out of the picture almost immediately, and that way you really need a Justice League to deal with the problem, because how much of evil Superman's around, and maybe get a chance to see, this would be awesome, Batman trains Superman in Kung Fu, superpowered Kung Fu fight there at the end. That would be cool.
Interesting.
Because I don't think they should do Darkseid for JLA. There's too much to him that makes him interesting. Like, if he goes up against someone like Thanos, and you don't have to have a whole movie to establish that he is this alien god who wants this equation that makes you his slave forever because it removes your brain, and he has demons, and he's a slave lord, and all this other crap about him, he's just going to be a big stone rock guy who's like that smiley purple dude from Avengers.
Alright, so we've gone on pretty long here. This is actually probably our longest issue Comic Station. A little heated, going back and forth. Last blurb. Should people see this?
Without question, it's the best Superman movie yet made.
Go see it in the theaters. Like, you should see it for that. It's that good. I count it as number 3, but it's probably the best thing in the theaters right now.
Go see it. I really enjoyed it. I would not mind seeing it again, mostly because I want to see all the Easter eggs and get a little of the action scenes that were a little too fast and bring those in a little more. Don't bother seeing it in 3D.
Oh, God, no. Agreed. Don't do it. Like, your eyes will thank you.
There you go. So, see it. Don't see it in 3D. Go see it with a group of friends.
That's a good call.
It is probably more discussion. It's probably more fodder for discussion. Go see it with a group of friends. That's the best way to see it. But everyone here, go see it.
Don't stay after the credits. There's no post-credits scene.
No post-credits. And I did stay. So go see it. And thank you for joining us for this extended talk about Man of Steel. A little bit of spoilers, a little bit here, a little bit of what we didn't like about it, what could have been improved.
Playing devil's advocate.
What we loved about it. And overall, it's a good movie. Maybe not a perfect Superman, but I think it is a good modernization. And unfortunately, the saying that keeps coming to mind is it's not the Superman we wanted, but it's the one we needed. It is, honestly, it is a mass market, and I think it will appeal to the mass market.
Solid but flawed.
There you go. Thank you very much, and as usual, come back on Wednesday for our new releases and reviews for our Comic Station. Thank you.
See ya.